You are listening to the Food Podcast. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE Podcast Network. Big question for you today at home, or maybe you are in your car. What would you do if you did not have a car? Would you be able to get to work? Would you be able to maybe walk to get your groceries? Or could you even carry those groceries home if you had to walk? Well, at Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank, we serve 11 counties. So anywhere from our rural counties to our urban ones, transportation can be one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to food access and families that are just trying to make ends meet. So today, we are going to learn some more about transportation issues and why Heritage Community Initiatives is stepping up to the plate to help out with some of these hurdles. So that interview is coming up right after the break, right here on the Food Podcast. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE Podcast Network.
When you bank with Clearview Federal Credit Union, it's like having the best seats of the game, a parking spot right out front, more fries on your salad, or a drive through the tunnels with no traffic. Choosing Clearview gives you financial solutions for every need, a helping hand in the community, and honest, trusted financial advice from familiar faces in your neighborhood. At Clearview, we want you to enjoy a better life. Visit clearviewfcu.org, open a new checking account, and get up to $500.
It was amazing. It reminded me of the part where Jesus feeds the crowd of 5,000 with the fish. That saved our life.
Welcome back to the Food Podcast. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE Podcast Network. As I mentioned in our introduction, today we are doing a deep dive into transportation and the connection to food insecurity. So joining me now, I have two fabulous guests. We have Marnie Shokin. She is the Chief Programs Officer here at Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. And we also have Laura Kelly. She is the Director of Business Development for Heritage Community Initiatives. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Food Podcast.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, first off, I always like to set the table and use food puns as well, so you'll learn. First, can you start off, and Marnie, Laura, can you start off by telling us just a little bit about yourselves and your work, what you do at your job? So Marnie, could you start us off by telling us just a little bit about you?
Sure. I'd love to. And it's great to be here with both of you and everyone who is listening in. So I work as the Chief Program Officer at the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. I oversee 4 different areas in our program department. We have an area that really focuses on child nutrition and works with all of our partners to do food security efforts with children, primarily with children and then with their families. I also work with our distributions area, which is the one that you see in videos where you see like the large, drive up distributions in non-pandemic times. It's where we do a lot of our walk up distributions. It's where we do our home delivery and our senior food box program. I also oversee the partner network programs, which is our entire network of all of our agencies, pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, things like that. And then finally, I oversee our call center and our SNAP application area. It's what we call our community connection area, meaning it helps to make connections within the community. So that all sits here at the food bank and, allows us to get out throughout our entire 11 county service area.
Yeah, you do a lot of the people-to-people work, a lot of the hands-on stuff. We appreciate you. Laura, tell us a little bit about your job and what you do over at Heritage Community Initiatives.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me also here today. My name is Laura Kelly, so I am our Director of Business Development at Heritage Community Initiatives. I am honored to have worked at Heritage for coming up on 11 years now in the fall. My job is great. It's wonderful and it comes very easily. My duty is to spread the good work of what Heritage is doing and to garner support in our 3 pillar areas, which are education, transportation, and nutrition.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that too. Tell me a little bit about what Heritage does when it comes to transportation specifically, what all you do in our area.
Sure, absolutely. So Heritage Community Transportation is our fixed route service. It is a van that provides connections through 16 transit isolated communities in Eastern Allegheny County. So our organization is based in Braddock, but we do serve 40 communities throughout Eastern Allegheny County. And our transportation program specifically focuses on those communities that have particular barriers around accessing public transportation.
Yeah, and that's such a big deal for us here at the food bank, especially as getting to people and getting them connected. Marnie, can you tell me a little bit about why transportation is just such a concern for us at Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank?
Sure. No, it's a great question, Krista, because you would think a food bank, why would we be that interested in transportation? And honestly, I would say, we assume transportation and the costs associated with it are a concern for all households, low income, middle income, higher income. The thing that we see at the food bank is that we know a lot of low income households have to juggle a lot more than higher income households to cover transportation and costs that are related to it. And so the problem comes where, just like anyone else, low income individuals are kind of balancing out they're making their transportation decisions based on weighing the benefits of that transportation against probably the cost of that transportation. And so what that means for us here at the food bank is that transportation becomes another trade-off issue, where individuals may need to scrimp on meals or not eat as much. They may have more difficulty making ends meet in terms of purchasing food because they're trying to save money in their pocket to cover their transportation costs. And so it's great to partner with folks like Heritage Community Initiatives so that we can get folks that are struggling to do that balancing act, allow them access to more resources so they don't have to balance quite as much.
Yeah. And Marnie, can you give me an example, like when we're talking transportation costs? Is that somebody thinking, okay, I have a job, so I need to get a car to get there and pay for the insurance, and is that worth it? Explain to me a little bit about how that works for so many people.
Yeah, well, for yourself, Krista, for anybody that's listening, if you are not food insecure, this probably doesn't even register in your mind. You go out to your car, you get in your car, you drive to whatever it is that you need. And I would say, we all use transportation to get to what, places where we live, where we work, and where we play, if you think about that. So, you need transportation to get to a job. You need transportation to get to you may have to travel farther to get to a higher paying job. So transportation allows you to move up in terms of economic mobility. You may need transportation to get to other essential things in your life. So dropping your child off at a daycare, getting to medical appointments like a doctor, a dentist, mental health services, being able to go to social activities, see your family, go to church, go to bingo, go to the gym. We all use transportation to do that. And what ends up happening a lot of times is if that transportation is not available, some aspect in someone's life begins to suffer, in that way. And it just becomes more complicated a lot of times for folks who are low income. And it's because, when we talk about transportation, we're not just talking about using a vehicle. When you talk about transportation, you're talking about lots of things that go into actually owning a vehicle. For example, you have to have the money to purchase a car. You have to have the money for repairs. You have to have money for gas, for insurance, for getting your driver's license, for parking. If you are driving somewhere and your employer doesn't cover parking, you have to be able to afford all of that. And so then the trade-off becomes, do I take public transportation? And then is public transportation available? Is it efficient? And is it safe? Does it get me where I need to go? Do I have to change 3 times for public transportation to work for me? So again, it's this whole balance between, what people have available to them. And unfortunately, if you look at a lot of studies, lower income individuals are more impacted by having to do a whole lot more balancing than higher income folks that just can go get in a car, leave, and never even think about all those other things that impact someone's life.
Right, right. Laura, I wanted to bring you in on this as well, because I know you are meeting people where they are a lot of the time when it comes to transportation issues. Tell me a little bit about the people you serve and what they use the transportation resources for. What are people using them for? Where are they going here, even in our area as well?
Yep. So we do an annual rider survey every fall to get an idea of who we're serving, what we're doing well, and maybe where some of our gaps in services are. And right now, we know that 90% of our riders do not have access to a personal vehicle or their own form of transportation. So this might be the only way that our riders, are getting around, or, through friends and relatives, things like that. As Marnie was saying, not only is transportation such a barrier to food access, it's also a huge barrier to all those other things she mentioned. We find that our riders most frequently use Heritage Community Transportation to access retail centers, to access employment, and then also to access healthcare. In addition to that, like Marnie was saying, many riders use our service to then meet a Port Authority route and access the greater transportation network. So about 65% of our riders are using Heritage Community Transportation to then connect to a more traditional form of public transportation that has, those connections all over the region. I think, what was the second part of that question?
Well, I was just thinking, the resources that people are connecting to, you know what I mean? I know that it can vary, right? There's doctor's appointments and all sorts of things. What areas mostly are you guys in? Where are you seeing?
Right. So as I
service
mentioned
as well?
earlier, we serve Eastern Allegheny County. So you
Mhm.
can find all of our route maps and schedules on our website at heritageserves.org/transportation.
Mhm.
But just to give listeners kind of an idea, right now, our routes, we have three main routes. So we have a route in Monroeville, we have a route in McKeesport, and then we have a route that meets at the Swissvale bus station. And they all come together in North Versailles. So we're really serving those, Eastern Allegheny counties outside of the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Marnie, I want to bring you back in to talk about this. We have these resources. We're trying really hard to reach people and get them connected. Obviously, we're hearing from Heritage about how they're looking at gaps and how they can better serve people. And we do that ourselves here at the food bank. Tell me about what all we do, knowing that these barriers exist. How do we reach out to people and get them connected to food? What's that struggle like? And what kind of things have we come up with at the food bank to assist those people who may be having barriers to transportation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, a number one way is exactly like what we're doing with Heritage, which is partnering with community organizations that are really plugged into the daily lives of individuals who are in need. And so making sure that those organizations know about our food bank services so that they can refer people to us. It's also embedding, where we can, our services into social service organizations. So for example, you could take something, Heritage isn't a great example because it's done food, but you could take a social service organization that maybe provides mental health services. And if they're able to have a certain amount of shelf-stable boxes in their office, and as clients come in, if they screen positive for food insecurity, they can hand food to individuals right then and there. It's not as ideal as going to a grocery store. It's not as ideal as necessarily getting, having a choice in what you receive. But for a family or an individual that's struggling in that moment, it helps provide some relief. And then what we work with those community partners to do is to make sure that they know how to refer that person to services in the community that are more holistic. So getting to a pantry where they can get, fresh produce, fresh dairy, frozen, meats. If the person's vegetarian, how they can get to a pantry that is able to provide them with food that is appropriate for their lifestyle. And then the last way, really, when you look at like our drive-up distributions, we do those and we scatter them throughout the 11 county service area, specifically so that individuals don't have to, or to try and minimize how much distance someone needs to travel before they can get to services. And then things like the, home delivery, while it's pretty small in terms of what we are able to do, there is some option for home delivery for individuals who really just can't even get outside of their homes. And if they're eligible, then we can make arrangements or see either that we would do a direct delivery or a partner could do a delivery to their home.
Yeah, our partners have been really awesome. Even seeing some of the other programs like senior boxes where so many seniors can't drive or can't get out, and how programs step up. And I know Heritage is stepping up too. You mentioned it, Marnie, and I would love Laura to expand a little bit about what Heritage is doing to assist folks that we serve. Laura, can you tell us a little bit about this idea you came up with, and how it's what the plan is, what the goal is of this partnership?
Absolutely. So we have partnered with the food bank for many, many years in lots of different ways. So this seemed like a natural fit, for our organization overall. We partner with the food bank, as Marnie mentioned, through our nutrition services, where we serve over 100,000 meals each year to children and seniors throughout our service area. That includes out of school time sites like those sponsored by the food bank. We also are partners in the senior food box program, which is one of our favorite things that we do together. And so finding this connection between Heritage Community Transportation and the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank seemed like, again, just a natural fit for everyone. So Heritage has granted the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank 550 free rider passes. So those rider passes are good through the end of April, and they will be distributed at food bank sites and areas that are near and around our existing fixed routes. So anyone who is at a distribution will receive a free rider card, and that free rider card will be good through the end of April. And it is our hope that in that way we can get some more interest around our program, help constituents who need access to places other than, distribution sites, and also that they may be able to continue riding Heritage Community Transportation as a sustainable solution to some of those things. So, we are public transportation, so we do have to charge a fare for our services, but we charge what we consider a fair fare, FAIR. And that is 25 cents per ride. So at the conclusion of this program at the end of April, we're hoping that we can continue to serve food bank constituents through our Heritage Community Transportation program at our fair fare rate.
Yeah, it's so awesome to hear that too, because that is a way to get people tapped in. If people don't know what resources there are, it's hard to help. To even know what's going on too. Marnie, from your perspective, getting somebody tapped into something like public transportation, does that help from even a life stabilization standpoint as well?
Yeah,
Tell me more about the impact for that.
Yeah, definitely, Krista. I mean, when you think about it, if, at this moment in time, if I was to say to you, Krista, okay, I'm going to take your car away and you need to navigate your life just by using a bus, that's a level of stress. And then if I say to you, okay, you got to be at work at 9 o'clock in the morning, but there's only one bus that comes in the morning at 7:30, and you're going to need to be on that. And so then you're going to get to work and you're going to have, all this extra time before work starts and So like all of these other stressors that come into play, that we don't even necessarily think of them as stressors, but waiting for the bus, standing outside when it's cold, in the rain, trying to stay healthy while you're kind of, being exposed to the elements, I would say. Anything like that causes more stress on someone who is already stressed because they're just like, dealing with getting their, like you're saying, to stabilize their lives. they're doing everything that they can to do that in a way that is the least stressful possible. And by partnering with somebody like Heritage and having these bus passes and being able to give these out to individuals, it just is one more thing that somebody doesn't have to navigate. It's kind of like when somebody shows up at your house with a casserole and you don't have to cook dinner and you're like, ooh, okay, that's like, I don't have to do that tonight. So this is like a really good casserole that somebody can use over and over again, as Laura was saying, and really hopefully help just take that stressor so that somebody doesn't have to expend, mental energy to consistently keep thinking about where am I going to get the money to be able to, get myself to where I need to go.
Right. And Laura, if anybody wants to learn more information too, where can they go? If they're hearing about this, is there a place that's a one-stop shop that they can learn information and see if that's a good fit for them?
Yeah, you're always welcome to visit our website. Again, it's heritageserves.org. And you can also follow us on social media. Our handle is @HeritageServes. So that's where you will find all of our most up-to-date information.
Good. And Marnie, we're already handing these out, aren't we?
I believe so. Laura would probably know better than me. Did we?
Right?
I think we started them, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Actually, this past weekend was our second weekend of distribution. So
joy.
These are already circulating in the community. And I believe they will continue to be distributed through, mid-February, making sure that everyone who receives a free rider card will still be able to use them for, a good amount of time.
Yeah, it's such a big footprint to see how many.
Hey, Kristen, can I put a plug in also?
I'd love it. Plug it up.
Yeah. So for individuals that get these cards, or if you're a family member of somebody who has these cards and you want to help them, sort of navigate how to use it, on our website, the food bank's website, which is pittsburghfoodbank.org, you can go on there. There's a green button at the top that's pretty obvious. It says Find Food. And so you click on that. I think you might have to click Find Food one more time, and then you could put in the actual, address that, that sort of corresponds to where these bus routes are. And you could find out, what are the pantry services that are nearby? What are distributions that are nearby? Senior programs, and summer food, although summer food isn't going on right now. But the Find Food app allows people to put in their address or even just their zip code if they want something that like tells them what's everything that's happening in 15110, and then they can see what will kind of pop up. So there's a way that you could look at between the Heritage website and see like the route of the bus, and then look at our website and get more information.
I love that.
Or or you call our call center.
Oh, there goes Marnie. We lost her, but that was a great plug. Great plug, Marnie. Marnie was mentioning our call center, which is just a fantastic resource too. If you are watching this version, yes, this is a video podcast. So if you're listening, you could always click and see the video version of the podcast. But if you look at the bottom of your screen, there is our call center number and some of the distributions, the big distributions that are happening in our area too. But Marnie, I will thank you in person since I get to see her at work. Laura, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Food Podcast. It was just a joy to have you. And we just love to see Heritage set such a good example of stepping up to the plate and helping so many folks in our area. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. We appreciate you having us. Thank you.
Great. Alrighty, it's about that time that we need to take a commercial break. So if you are listening or watching, this is the Food Podcast. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE Podcast Network.
When you bank with Clearview Federal Credit Union, it's like having the best seats of the game. A parking spot right out front, more fries on your salad, or a drive through the tunnels with no traffic. Choosing Clearview gives you financial solutions for every need, a helping hand in the community, and honest, trusted financial advice from familiar faces in your neighborhood. At Clearview, we want you to enjoy a better life. Visit clearviewfcu.org, open a new checking account, and get up to $500.
It was amazing. It reminded me of the part where Jesus feeds the crowd of 5,000 with the fish. That saved our life.
Welcome back to the Food Podcast. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE podcast network. And you know that it's live when we roll with any technical glitches. Such a joy to have Marnie joining us and Laura, because it really does take a community to tackle something as big as food insecurity. There are so many factors, so many different reasons, and there are resources out there and people trying to help. So if you're able to even share this podcast to raise awareness so that somebody who might be living with this behind closed doors sees it, share it. This is a great way to raise awareness, be an advocate, or if you want to donate, that's a great way to assist your community as well. So we're able to stretch those dollars. And it's just amazing. You can also do a fundraiser if you want. In fact, that will be the topic of our next episode of the Food Podcast. In fact, there is an event which I used the term frisbee golf, and I was told that's not what you call it anymore. We're going to be talking about disc golf and an event where you can do that and really enjoy rain, snow, sunshine. You can really seize the opportunity to get outside this time of year, have some fun, and raise money for Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. So if you're competitive, which the numbers of people that are signing up for disc golf memberships in the Pittsburgh area is just skyrocketing. So we're going to talk all about that coming up in next week's episode of the Food Podcast. Thanks for listening. The Food Podcast is brought to you by Clearview Federal Credit Union on the TribLIVE Podcast Network.